We are recording as of right now. In your kit, you have the instructions, you have the base, you have the hood with the light. You're going to have a little cup that's got a lot of little stuff in it. You've got the clay and the tank. And there is some veneer, mahogany veneer, that you will use for the base. If you can all turn your microphones off, this will help, rather than having any interruptions. The supplies that you're going to need for this class: white glue, X-Acto, pair of scissors, toothpicks, or I use my little handy stick, and maybe a popsicle stick or something like that, because you're going to smash your sand and you're going to use that glue. Let's put that away. Now the first thing that you're going to do is make the fish. To start with, I made these yesterday. Let's kind of zoom in on it so you can see it a little better. You're going to start with a little blob. You're going to flat roll each end into like a football shape. Then you're going to smash it until it's about the thickness of a penny. Then you're going to cut off the end of your football. And you're going to take a knife, your X-Acto knife, and you're going to shape your fish. Let's do that with this one. Roll into a football shape. And this is for making a goldfish. Then you're going to smash it down. See his nose? We're going to give him a tail. Now we're making a goldfish, and they're shaped a little bit different than other types of fish. Let's kind of pan in so that you can see pretty much what I'm doing. When your knife is at this angle, actually more of an angle, when you put it in this clay will want to stick to the knife. So gently put your knife in and form his tail. Then, of course, the tail fins have little lines on it. Oops. The next thing you want to do is give him a gill. Actually, you want him to stay where he's put. He's got a gill now, and you're going to give him an eye. Now, I usually use a push pin, whoops, for his eye. It doesn't want to stay. Okay, so, oops. Let's put him back on the tile where he belongs. It stays a lot easier on the tile. There are two backgrounds for making your fish. Tile is your best because your clay wants to stick to that tile a lot easier. Let's give him a mouth. The other possibility, if you don't have a tile, is I used a piece of wood, just a simple piece of wood, and I covered it with tin foil. and I made my fish on the tin foil. You can bake, you're only baking this at 275 degrees, so that wood is quite safe underneath all that tin foil. So in a pinch, grab your tin foil and wrap it around a piece of wood. When I made the fish, I used the white for making little angel fish, yellow for the tangs, and the orange for the goldfish. And when you first start, you're going to actually have a blob that's pretty good size. That's way too big for a fish. You're going to end up with a fish that is way too big for your aquarium. And this is a size that you really want to have for the aquarium size that you got in the mail, in your kit. For your angelfish, for sure you want to start with a little tiny blob. This was very small. Practice, practice, practice. It just takes time and practice to get the fish down straight. And it blows my mind when I teach this to a kids class. Most of them do very well to start with. After you've made your fish, you're going to bake them. 275 for no more than 10 minutes. If you over bake them, it's really easy to for them to break. The other thing that I want to make mention of is that when you're making these little fins up at the top, let me focus in on that little fish. When you're making these little fins up here at the top, they will break very easily. So you got to be very careful with your little guys. Once you put these on here and you've baked them, very gently move them. Okay? They will want to stick to the foil, so be very careful. Make yourself a lot of extra fish. Let's focus back out. And let's go to installing the scene. In your kit, you have the clay that you're making your fish with. That's your angelfish, that's your goldfish, and that's your tangs. And that's a dirty tank. Your kit has that's the trim. This will be the trim that goes around the outside of your tank. This is sand. You have a scene that goes to the back. You have sandpaper that goes on the floor, and I'm not going to get it out right now. You have very dry Lycopodium, and handle that with care because it wants to fall apart real easily. So the first thing we're going to do is cut the scene to fit the inside of the back wall. A little bit more. Okay, this is peel and stick. You can glue it on, I just dogleg the corner, or I'll pick a different corner. I may end up gluing it in. Well, I generally don't have this much trouble. We got it apart. There, I have my scene in. Let's put this aside. Next thing I'm going to do is glue the sandpaper down to the bottom of the inside of the box. Grab my glue. It doesn't take much. You just want it to stay on the bottom inside. Now, the sandpaper may be a little bit big. It's sticking out here on the edge, so I will trim. Oops. You do not want it to, you don't want it to stick out beyond this point. Now we have the sand. Let's take a look. Okay, so far we have an empty aquarium. If you get some glue on the inside, where's my pointy stick? If you get some glue on the wall inside of here, make sure that you get it off. I use a Q-tip. Or cotton swab of some sort. The next thing you're going to do is put your sand mixture on top of that. And how I do it is I mix white glue and my sand, and I make kind of like a glue sandy paste, and then I glue it down or push it down on top of the sandpaper. Give you an idea of how it looks when you're done. I have added the sand to the bottom of this one. Then you're going to take your Lycopodium, dip it in a little bit of glue, white glue, and stick it into the sand while the sand is a little bit wet, so that the two merge much better than if you waited until it was dry. You're also going to put some Lycopodium on the back wall. Let me put the lid on my glue. Like I said, gently disassemble your Lycopodium. And you can see it's very dry. And wants to come apart. I'm going to glue a little bit of Lycopodium on the back wall. Make sure that you keep it a little bit up from the bottom, because you're going to slide this into the box. That's a little more than I want. There. Not easy to pick up. By the time I get through handling this, I'm almost out of glue in this bottle. Put a little bit of glue. And you can see I've got it up a little bit from the bottom. Now when that glue dries, it will be clear. While I've got the glue out and this piece open, I'm going to squeeze a little bit more glue. Whoops. And on the foliage, and I'm going to drop a little fish. To your list of things that you may want to add, a pair of tweezers will help. We've added a fish. Once you get your fish on that one, let me get this apart. And your sand on the other, you're going to glue that Lycopodium on this. You're also going to sneak a little fish on the front of the Lycopodium in the box. Once you put that together, you have a fish tank with fish in it, with your sand. The toughest part of all of this is getting the right size fish and getting a decent amount of sand. Remember that your sand is not necessarily smooth at the bottom, so be creative. I make little mounds. You can make all kinds of little goodies that go inside of it. A little ships, treasure chests, shells. So let's put this together again. And you have your aquarium. A very simple, messy project. And now I'm going to open up to I'm going to open it up this to questions. I'm going to unmute you guys because I'm sure that there are a bazillion questions. Unmute, 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 unmute. Unmute. Remember that your microphone is now open. So, Marcia, you're unmuted. Okay, so if you got a dog, a telephone, or whatever, you may remember that. Everybody else can hear it too. Can you paint the fish? You bet you can. And we are recording the meeting.
I have a quick question.
Okay, speak up because I can barely hear you.
This is Stephanie. I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
When baking the fish, your notes say 15 minutes, but you stated 10. I just wanted to verify what you prefer.
Here's the reason why. It is 15 minutes for every 1/4 inch, and we're making a much less size.
Okay, thank you.
I baked, I don't know, 3 sets of fish yesterday, and the first one I went 15 minutes, the second one was 12 minutes, and the third one was 10, and 10 turned out to be better. They become very fragile, and if you overbake them, they end up dust eventually. So I highly recommend considering the size of your fish, and they should be small. The smaller your fish, the better your tank is going to look, as long as it's visible. And remember that one thing that I learned when I was doing this stuff yesterday, hang on, we all know what the end of that X-Acto life looks like. If you put that on clay, and let's see if I can, if you roll the end of that on the clay, let me zoom in on this so that you can see it. By doing that, it actually gives it a texture that looks like fish scales. So you may want to experiment with your fish. I gave you each the shapes. Angelfish are shaped very different from goldfish. Tangs are shaped even more different. They're more round with this little bitty tail on them. When you make your fish and put them in the aquarium and put it in your scene, and this one is more a 1-inch scale. I have never tried the 1/4 scale yet because they're pretty tiny. But when you put it in your scene, you don't want it to be the serious focal point of the whole room. And if you make it too big, like if you put this in a 1/4 scale scene, it's going to overshadow everything that's in there. Remember that fish tanks or aquariums come in all sizes. Questions?
Ruth Mazer here.
Huh?
This is Ruth.
Hi, Ruth.
I have a quick question. What kind of clay did you use?
What kind of what?
Clay.
Oh, actually, I go with whatever I find at Joann's. And right now, if I remember correctly, it is Sculpey.
Okay.
I have a lot of different brands, and I don't, because I'm working with such a small amount, I really don't have too terribly much trouble with any of the brands. I've got some Cernit that's about 8 years old.
The reason I ask is it's stuck to the inside of my box.
Wow.
Apparently that's not a good plastic to put it in. I wondered if anyone else had a problem.
Yes.
I have another box to use, so I'm okay.
Right.
If you leave
So the clay actually is stuck to the inside of the acrylic box?
Yes.
Lucy?
Remember that our temperatures have been pretty high, and it may have melted it too.
No,
raw
it
clay
wasn't
tends
melted.
to eat
It was
acrylic.
just stuck to pick off.
Did anybody else have that problem?
Yes.
Maybe in the future, Lucy, wrap it in some saran wrap before you put it in the box.
Okay. That or the little Ziploc bags, because I've got the tiny ones.
Yeah, well,
Although
you
they're-
know that there are some plastics that the clay is not compatible with.
Right.
Okay, one other question. Where do we get the battery attachment for the light? Do you have those available?
Yes, I do. These lights will be 3 volt, and I found some of the tiny, very tiny 3 volt light sources.
Well, you gave us a Pico light, though. I have
What?
a light in my kit.
I didn't provide the power.
That's what I'm asking for. Is the
Right. I have it, but I didn't provide the power. I would have had to go up in price to do that, and I'm trying to keep these workshops as low a price as possible.
No, I understand, but can I purchase one from you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Lucy?
welcome.
That's all
Yeah,
the questions I have.
the battery holder and the battery for this, which is, there's 2 choices, but I use the micro one. They're $3, which is not bad.
I only need the holder because I've been buying those batteries by the dozen.
You mean the coin holder?
Yes,
Okay.
just
They
the-
have. I have them even smaller than that because we light the 144 stuff,
Oh,
and a coin holder is bigger than some of the 144 stuff.
okay.
So we do have the smaller ones.
Okay.
I
I
think
will
I
send-
might.
I
Hang
will
on,
send
just-
you. I will send you an email later on this.
Okay. Here,
Lucy,
yeah.
it's Elaine. I couldn't get my thing unmuted for a minute there. My clay also stuck, and I've tried scraping it off, glue-begoning it off, and a few other things, and then did what Ruth did, ran to my pile of boxes and found another one. Yeah, I think you really need in future to wrap the clay in a piece of saran wrap or something.
You got it. You
So-
got it.
Anyway,
You would not think, or I never gave any thought to the fact that generally the clay would stick to the acrylic. But it's a good experience for me to know. If anybody wants, I can send you another box.
I found one. Well, I'm fine.
The box that I use is pretty common. It's what we get an awful lot of stuff in. But thank you, Ruth, for reminding me that this clay is likes acrylic.
Yes.
Here is the size of that that little battery that I use. That's a 3 volt lithium, and then I incorporate a on-off switch.
What is the number on that battery?
It is a 1220.
Okay. Smaller than I've used before.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It is smaller than the ones I have used before.
Yeah, the ones that you use. Oh, I'm sorry, but they're in the living room, being worked on. The ones that you use are pretty good size. Coin cell batteries are
Yes.
pretty good size.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
in fact,
I will get in touch with you for one of these.
here's a holder that I use for the coin cell, and you can tell there's a big difference.
Yes.
This little guy fits into the base that we're going to be making
Good.
much easier.
Good.
And you're also going to see the new connectors so that you don't have to do any soldering if you don't want to.
Mm.
Okay, any other questions? You're all in an open microphone.
How much do we need to have done for the next class?
Please speak up because I can barely hear you.
Okay. What all do we need to have done for the next class?
Okay, your next class is going to be your base. I will send out, and that's this piece right here. I will send out to all of you a list of the equipment that you're going to need for the base. You are going to need wood glue. Highly recommend wood glue. It is not flexible. It doesn't dry flexible, which is when you're gluing wood pieces together, you don't want that flexibility for the most part. You're going to need emery board. For me to remember it all right now is difficult. So I will send you all a list of things that you need to finish this little guy. I will have one completed. In fact, I think I have one almost completed now that I can show you. You're also going to use this tape to decorate the side of your fish tank. You remember that all tanks have that little chrome strip that's holding it together, obviously, on the outside. So you're going to be decorating the outside of your tank, and you're going to be making the base on the next go around, next Saturday.
Okay, next Saturday.
I have the instructions already and pictures already made that I can send you, because some of you have better things to do on Saturdays than sit in a office and look at a computer and instructions. So if you need the instructions, just holler. I'll have that done ready for you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else that had clay that stuck, if you need another box, holler, because I did get a bunch of them from Janet. Let's see, I know we lost out on getting a kit. Can you tell us who the suppliers for the fish tank photos come from? Would love to try this. I ended up with 2 extra kits, so if anybody wants one, email me privately after the program. I'm going to stop the recording.